Desert of Broken Souls, Elena Ward, and Captain Adrian Rivers, Iraq, 2007. Episode 1, Arrival in Hell. She didn't remember packing her bags that morning. Maybe she blocked it out. Maybe fear was already trying to protect her mind from what was coming. All she remembered was the sharp sound of the helicopter blades cutting through the air like a warning. Iraq, 2007. Elena Ward stepped out of the helicopter, and the first thing she felt was the heat. Not warm, but burning, punishing heat. Sand hit her face like tiny needles, and behind the wall of dust, a place she only knew from military briefings and news reports, her uniform felt heavier than usual, her boots uncomfortable. Sweat formed instantly, but she kept walking, because stopping meant thinking, and thinking meant fear. A distant explosion echoed across the desert. She froze. No one around her reacted. No surprise, no fear, just routine. Captain Adrian Rivers walked toward her with a confident, tired expression. He looked like a man who had seen too much. "Private Ward," she nodded. "You're assigned to Alpha Medical. That's the emergency tent over there. Follow me." She wanted to answer, but the heat stole her voice. She could only breathe, deeply, slowly, pretending she wasn't terrified. Inside the medical tent, the lights flickered above surgical tables covered with dust. Soldiers lay unconscious, some wrapped in bandages, some whispering through pain. "Elena," someone called. It was another medic, probably her age. "I'm Sarah. First day." Elena forced a smile. "Is it that obvious?" Sarah looked down at her trembling gloves. "Everyone shakes at first. Just don't let the captain see it." Elena wondered why. She had heard rumors about Captain Rivers. Strict, unforgiving, focused on survival above everything. Then suddenly, gunfire in the distance. A short burst, then another, then silence. Sarah whispered, almost too quietly, "Welcome to hell." Elena took a deep breath and picked up medical supplies. She wasn't ready. She knew that. But readiness wasn't what this place demanded. Only survival. Captain Rivers shouted from outside the tent, "Medical team, incoming wounded." "Move." Elena rushed forward, heart pounding. The world around her felt unreal, like a movie she couldn't pause. A Humvee arrived carrying soldiers covered in blood and sand. She grabbed a wounded soldier's arm, trying to stop the bleeding. Her hands shook. She couldn't control them. The soldier coughed, eyes barely open. Am I going to make it?" She swallowed fear. "You're safe now, I promise." Another lie. Already her mind was learning to lie to survive. As she worked on the wound, Captain Rivers stood behind her, watching silently. Testing, judging. When she looked up, he didn't say anything, but she understood everything. This was only the beginning, and she wasn't leaving here the same person she arrived. Episode 2. The first night, the sun went down slowly behind the desert horizon, turning the sand into a dark sea of shadows. The air didn't cool. It almost felt hotter, like the night itself was burning. Elena thought nights in Iraq would be quiet. She was wrong. Artillery echoed somewhere far in the darkness, short, sharp tremors that shook the thin walls of the medical tent. Each explosion was like a reminder that danger never slept here. Inside, Elena washed blood from her gloves, staring at the red water dripping into the metal sink. She wasn't used to this color, not this much of it. Sarah stepped beside her, leaning tiredly on the counter. "You did good today," she whispered. Elena shook her head. "I froze. Twice. Everyone freezes. Even you." Sarah forced a tired smile. "Especially me." Elena wanted to believe her, but she could still hear Captain Rivers' voice in her head, silent but heavy. That silent judge was harder to ignore than any explosion. Outside, the wind screamed like something alive. Sand hit the tent like angry fists trying to get inside. Everything felt unstable, ready to fall apart with the smallest push. One of the wounded soldiers groaned in pain. Elena rushed to check him. Young, barely 20. Pale skin against dirty bandages. His breathing shallow. When he opened his eyes, he didn't look confused. He looked scared, truly scared. "Are we safe?" he whispered. She hesitated only a fraction of a second. "Yes, you're safe here." Another lie. They were surrounded by miles of unpredictable desert, armed insurgents, and the constant unknown. Safe was a word they said, because without it, everything would collapse. Sarah spoke quietly. "Don't get attached. That's rule number 1. Elena looked at her. "That's impossible." "No," Sarah sighed. "That's survival." Silence stretched for a long moment, broken only by the distant sounds of machine guns echoing like painful memories. Later, Elena stepped outside for a moment of air. The night sky was strange, too many stars, too much silence between explosions. Suddenly, Captain Rivers appeared behind her without warning. She almost jumped. "Ward, sir, you hesitated twice today." Her heart froze, he noticed. "Yes, sir." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. "You can't do that. People die when you hesitate." "I understand, sir. Do you?" Elena felt something heavy forming inside her chest, like shame mixed with fear. "Yes, sir." He stared at her for a long moment, studying every emotion she tried to hide. "Get some rest. Tomorrow will be worse." He turned and walked away, leaving those words to sink into her bones. Worse. Tomorrow. She wasn't sure she could survive worse than today. Back in her tent, She lay awake for hours, listening to explosions far away, wondering if she made the biggest mistake of her life. She wanted to go home, but home was a lifetime away. As she finally closed her eyes, one last sound shook her awake. A sudden burst of machine gun fire, closer than before. Silence. Or maybe the silence now was just fear holding its breath. Episode 3: The Ambush. The morning came without sunlight. A thick sandstorm painted the sky brown, making the world look like an endless desert swallowed by dust. Elena barely slept. Her eyes burned, but orders didn't care about sleep. Captain Rivers gathered the team outside the medical tent. His voice was sharp even through the storm. Civilian convoy reported near Route 6. Possible casualties. Medical unit on standby. Sarah whispered beside Elena. Translation: we're about to get hit with a lot of blood. Elena tried to swallow, but her throat felt dry from dust and fear. Within minutes, 6 injured civilians arrived, women, men, even a child. It was worse than she expected. Shrapnel wounds, burns, deep cuts. The child cried without voice, only trembling. Elena leaned close, checking the injury. Small fragments across the legs. Blood slowly soaking clothing. "Hey," she whispered softly. "You're gonna be okay, I promise." Was she lying again? Maybe. But the child needed lies today. As she worked, a sudden rumbling noise approached the base. Vehicles, fast and heavy. Not American, not military, something else. Soldiers outside raised rifles. Voices shouted orders. Elena's heartbeat quickened. Captain Rivers stormed inside. "Ward, you're with me." She stared at him in confusion. "I need to stay with the wounded. You're coming," he growled. "Now." She dropped her medical tools, grabbed the basic field kit, and followed him outside into choking sand. 4 Humvees raced toward the convoy site. She had never ridden into danger before. Her hands trembled. Rivers noticed. "Control your breathing," he ordered. "In through your nose. Slow." She did. For a moment, the panic loosened. The Humvee sped through the desert. Elena couldn't see much through the sandstorm, only shadows moving like ghosts. Suddenly, a deafening explosion erupted nearby. The Humvee shook violently. "Ambush," a soldier shouted. Gunfire rained across the desert. Bullets hit sand like angry hail. Elena crawled down instinctively, hands over her head. Rivers pulled her closer. "Stay low." Another explosion, close. Too close. Men shouted outside. She heard pain in their voices. "Medic, medic." Elena grabbed her kit, trying to get out, but Rivers blocked her. "You move now, you die." "But they're bleeding." "Stay down." More gunshots, more explosions. Sand filled the vehicle through every opening. Finally, after what felt like years, the gunfire stopped. Only silence remained, heavy, unnatural silence. Rivers gave the signal, and Elena rushed out, stumbling toward the nearest wounded soldier. Blood soaked the sand beneath him. She pressed bandages, hands shaking violently. "You're okay," she whispered, voice cracking. Another lie she needed to believe. As evacuation arrived, Elena noticed something terrifying. This wasn't random insurgent fire. This was planned, calculated, an ambush waiting for them, waiting exactly at that location. She looked at Rivers, whispering through fear. How did they know we'd be here? Rivers didn't answer, and that silence was more frightening than gunfire. Episode 4. The hospital night after the ambush. The medical tent felt different. Too quiet, too heavy. The wounded soldiers were brought in one by one, soaked in blood and sand, breathing unevenly, whispering through pain. Elena could barely feel her own hands as she worked. The trembling seemed permanent now. Sarah stitched a wound under dim lights, whispering, "They're being targeted. Someone gave our position away." Elena's heart froze. "You think someone inside?" "I don't know," Sarah interrupted. But that ambush wasn't luck. Elena looked toward Captain Rivers, who stood near the tent entrance like a silent shadow, watching everything, saying nothing. His eyes followed every medic, every soldier, every piece of equipment, like he was searching for invisible answers. Inside the tent, a sudden scream echoed. One of the wounded convulsed on the table, arteries bleeding through a temporary dressing. Elena rushed forward, pressing tightly. "Hold on, please hold on." His pulse weakened beneath her fingers. Sarah grabbed medical tools, hands working faster than her thoughts. "Pressure, Elena. Come on, don't freeze." Elena swallowed panic and pushed harder. Blood seeped through her gloves like warm water. For a moment, she felt dizzy, like she would collapse. The soldier's pulse stopped. Elena stared, breath shaking. Sarah whispered, "We did what we could." "No," Elena murmured, voice breaking. "I was too slow." Sarah placed a hand on her arm. "You can't save everyone." Elena didn't believe that, because that sentence hurt worse than losing someone. Hours passed. The storm outside grew louder, like something alive trying to get inside. Elena tried to rest, but the thought of the ambush kept returning. Someone told them where we were. Someone wanted them dead. Captain Rivers finally approached her table. "You acted faster this time," he said quietly. Elena looked up, surprised. "I lost one. You saved 3. For the first time, he didn't sound like a soldier, but like a human. "You hesitated before because you didn't understand fear," he said. "Now you do." Elena didn't know if that was comforting or terrifying. Later, outside the tent, the storm calmed slightly. Rivers lit a cigarette, shielding the flame from the wind. Elena had never seen him smoke before. He looked older under the night sky. "Sir," she began. He waited. How did they know our location today? Silence hung like a knife between them. Finally, Rivers spoke, low and tense. "There are things here you don't need to know yet." "Sir, are we in danger?" "We're always in danger." "That's not what I meant." Rivers looked at her with an expression she couldn't read. Something dark, something painful. "Ward," he whispered, almost like a warning. "If you're going to survive here, don't ask questions you don't want the answers to." He turned and walked away, leaving Elena alone with the night and a storm much larger than sand. In the distance, an alarm sounded. Not gunfire, not artillery, something worse. A base breach. And this time, the enemy wasn't outside. Someone was already inside the walls. Episode 5. The hidden enemy. Elena didn't understand the alarm at first. It wasn't the usual sound of incoming fire or medical alert. It was darker, heavier, almost like a warning that came too late. Soldiers rushed through the base, armed and tense. Floodlights moved in circles, cutting through the sand-filled air. Elena stepped outside the medical tent, her heartbeat climbing rapidly without reason. Sarah whispered behind her, "Internal breach. That can't be real unless someone let them in." Elena turned quickly. "Are you saying?" "I'm not saying anything. I'm saying I don't know." Sarah cut her off, voice trembling. The base speakers crackled. "All units report. Unknown activity inside perimeter." Captain Rivers appeared out of nowhere, grabbing his equipment while giving orders. "Everyone stay inside. Nobody moves unless ordered." Elena tried to speak. "Sir." He didn't stop walking. "Ward, back inside. Now." She stayed still, watching him disappear through the blowing sand, heading toward the outer fences with a silent fury that frightened her more than the alarm. Inside the tent, wounded soldiers stirred anxiously. One of them struggled to sit up, breathing heavily. "What's happening out there?" he asked. Elena forced calm into her voice. "Nothing you need to worry about." The lie tasted worse this time. Minutes passed. Nothing. A silence too heavy to trust. Then suddenly gunfire echoed across the base. Short, calculated bursts. Not chaotic, precise, controlled. Sarah locked the tent doors, whispering, almost to herself, "They're not trying to invade, they're trying to eliminate someone." Elena felt a chill crawl up her spine. Who would they target inside a base full of soldiers? Sarah answered without hesitation, "Someone important." Elena thought of Rivers, his silence, his tension, his cigarette, his warning. Was he the one they were after? Before she could speak, 2 soldiers rushed into the tent, carrying another wounded man shot in the shoulder, blood trailing down his uniform. Elena moved quickly, pressing against the wound. What happened? Who fired? The soldier trembled. I don't know, shadows. They came from inside. Elena exchanged a terrified glance with Sarah. Inside? She asked. He nodded weakly. I swear, uniforms. They had our uniforms, Sarah whispered. Oh God. Elena continued treating the wound, listening to every slight noise outside, every distant shot, every whisper of sand against the canvas walls. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the alarm stopped. Captain Rivers returned, covered in dust, breathing hard, his expression unreadable. Elena approached him cautiously. Sir, what happened? He looked at her with eyes darker than the desert night. There was no breach. Elena frowned, but the alarm. False alarm, he said sharply. Nothing to worry about. But his voice didn't match his words. It was too tight, too controlled, like someone holding a secret that was burning their hands. Sarah whispered to Elena, he's lying. Rivers stepped closer, lowering his voice so only Elena could hear. Ward, if you hear anything tonight, anything, you do not leave this tent. Do you understand me? She swallowed. Yes, sir. Good, he said quietly, because tonight things are going to change. He left without another word. Elena wasn't sure what frightened her more, the alarm, the gunfire, or the look in Rivers' eyes, like he knew something terrible was coming. Episode 6, The Desert Capture, full English version. Elena couldn't sleep. The words Captain Rivers had whispered earlier kept replaying in her head. Tonight, things are going to change. It didn't sound like a warning. It sounded like a prediction. Outside, the wind howled louder with every hour, throwing sand against the tent walls like thousands of tiny fists trying to break through. Elena sat awake, exhausted, listening to the storm and the silence between distant shots. Something felt wrong. She could feel it crawling under her skin. And then, a massive explosion ripped through the night. The ground shook beneath her boots. Sarah gasped. What the hell was that? The lights flickered, then died completely. Darkness swallowed the tent. Voices yelled outside. Orders, panic, silence. Then another explosion, closer. Elena covered her ears, heart pounding. The tent flap opened violently. A dark silhouette stood in the doorway. Elena Ward. The voice was cold, unfamiliar. She stood up slowly. Yes, what's going on? You are under medical extraction orders. Come with us. Sarah whispered urgently. Elena, don't trust them. But before she could react, 2 armed men stepped inside and grabbed her by the arms. Wait, I need to stay with my patients. Elena protested. No answer, only force. She was pushed outside into the raging storm, towards a waiting military vehicle with no visible insignia. Floodlights flickered across swirling sand, casting strange shadows. Elena shouted over the wind, "Where is Captain Rivers? I need to speak to him." They shoved her into the vehicle without a single word. The Humvee sped into the open desert, harder, faster than any evacuation she'd ever seen. Elena stared at the men around her, same uniforms, same weapons, but no unit patches, no names, no identification. Her stomach twisted. Something was terribly wrong. She leaned toward the soldier in front. "Where are you taking me?" Silence. Suddenly, gunfire erupted outside. Bullets slammed against the vehicle. Shattered glass, metal sparks. DOWN. Someone shouted. Elena ducked as the Humvee swerved sharply, trying to escape the incoming fire. Another explosion hit nearby. The vehicle shook, almost tipping. "They're ambushing us," a voice yelled. Elena tried to understand who was attacking who, and why. Before she could think, the Humvee screeched to a halt. Doors were yanked open. Rough hands grabbed her, pulling her into the sand. "Move," someone barked. She resisted instinctively, struggling. But a hand twisted her wrist behind her back and forced her down. "Stay still," a voice growled. Her heart raced as they covered her head with fabric. Darkness. No sense of direction. Only breathing. Only fear. Elena was sitting on a metal chair, hands tied behind her back. The room was dark, only a single lamp glowing above her like an interrogation spotlight. Her head throbbed with dizziness. Two men stood in the shadows, whispering, "She's the one." "You're certain?" "Yes, she's Rivers' medic." Another man stepped closer, voice low and dangerous. "She'll talk." Elena held her breath. Talk about what? Why her? And who the hell were these people? One thing was clear. She wasn't dealing with insurgents. This was personal, calculated, targeted. The kind of abduction planned long before tonight. And suddenly, Elena realized she hadn't been rescued. She had been taken. Episode 7. The torture room. Elena tried to move her hands, but the ropes cut into her wrists, burning her skin. The metal chair beneath her felt cold, unforgiving. The air smelled like dust and metal. Not a normal room. Not part of the base. A dim light flickered above, casting long shadows across concrete walls. She listened closely. No engines, no radio chatter, no distant artillery. Wherever she was, it was isolated. A door opened with a slow metallic scrape. Someone entered, boots against the concrete floor, heavy steps, controlled. A man approached, face hidden behind a black cloth mask. "Elena Ward," he said calmly. "United States Army. Medical Unit, Alpha Squad." Her voice trembled. Who are you? Where am I? He ignored the question. You're close to Captain Rivers. Very close. Close. Elena frowned. She barely knew him. He barely spoke to her. What does he have to do with this? She whispered. The man leaned closer. Everything. He began pacing slowly around her. You think Rivers is just another officer? Just another soldier? No, he's more valuable than you understand. And you're going to help us get to him. Elena shook her head. I don't know anything about him. The man stopped walking. Silence, heavy, threatening. Then suddenly, he hit the metal table beside her with the back of his fist. The sound echoed through the room, bouncing off the walls like a warning shot. You will talk. Everyone talks eventually. Elena closed her eyes, fighting panic. I really don't know, the man interrupted sharply. Then let's start with something simple. Why did Rivers transfer to Iraq 3 months earlier than scheduled? I don't know, she stuttered. He slammed his hand again. You were assigned to him. You had to know. No, Elena cried. I was assigned last minute. He moved behind her, out of sight. She felt his presence like a shadow crawling across her back. You're lying, and lies are useless here. Elena's breathing quickened. If you want secrets, you're questioning the wrong person. The man leaned closer. Oh, I know exactly who I'm questioning. Minutes passed without sound. The silence was torture itself. Then another door opened. A second man entered, this one taller, voice calmer, almost polite. Let me handle this. The masked interrogator stepped aside. Elena, the new man began softly. Tell me what Rivers told you tonight. Elena thought of Rivers' voice. Tonight, things are going to change. She hesitated, unsure if she should share anything. But the man noticed that hesitation instantly. There, he whispered, you know something. Elena forced the words out. He didn't tell me anything important. He just told me to stay inside the tent. Why? I don't know. Yes, you do. Elena tried to breathe, tried to stay calm. Rivers knew something was coming, the man said quietly. Something he didn't want you near. Elena shook her head. He didn't want anyone near danger. No, the man said. He didn't want you near it. Elena stared at him, confused, frightened. What do you want from me? He leaned down, voice barely audible. We want Rivers. Suddenly, the room door slammed open. Someone rushed in, breathing fast. They're moving. We need to relocate. What about her? One asked. Take her with us. She's leverage. Elena's chair was lifted violently, ropes still cutting her skin. Her heart raced as they dragged her out into the unknown, into darkness, into deeper danger. And all she could think was, if Rivers really knew this was coming, why didn't he stop it? Episode 8. The unexpected ally Elena was dragged through a narrow hallway, blindfolded, hands bound, feeling every bump in the floor. The men spoke quietly, too quietly, which only made her more terrified. Someone shoved her forward. She hit a wall, then slid down. A hand grabbed her arm, pulling her up again. "Move," a voice ordered. She tried to calm her breathing, tried not to panic. But panic didn't listen. A heavy metal door opened. She felt cold air brush across her face. Then the blindfold was ripped off. Elena blinked in the sudden light. She was inside an abandoned industrial building, rusted metal, broken windows, old wiring hanging like dead vines. No military markings, no flags, no insignia, just shadows. 2 armed men stood guard outside a chained doorway. Another checked a radio, whispering something Elena couldn't hear. Then, suddenly, someone else appeared from behind a pillar. A man, same uniform, same gear, but his face wasn't covered. He approached slowly, eyes studying her. "Elena," he said quietly, "I need you to listen very carefully." She stared at him, confused and afraid. "Where am I? What do you want from me?" The man leaned in, voice low. "You're being used as a message to draw Rivers out." So it was about Rivers. "Why him?" she asked. The man hesitated. "It doesn't matter." "It matters to me," she snapped. "If you're going to kill me, at least tell me why." He looked around cautiously, making sure no one else was listening. "No one is killing you," he said quietly. "That's not what this is." Elena frowned. "Then what is it?" He sighed. "It's a negotiation. Rivers has something these men want, and they believe he will trade himself to get you back." Elena felt her stomach twist. "No, he's not going to surrender for me." The man looked her directly in the eyes. "You don't know Rivers." For a moment, silence hung in the room like smoke. Then footsteps approached, the masked interrogator from before. "You," he growled, staring at the man speaking to Elena. "Get back to your post." The masked man shoved the ally away and turned to Elena, raising a syringe filled with clear liquid. "This will make you more cooperative." Elena's heart raced. "No, no, please." He grabbed her arm. Suddenly, a loud bang echoed across the building. Gunfire, screams. The masked man stopped, turning toward the door. What the hell is happening? Multiple shots erupted outside. Someone yelled, "They found us! They found us!" The masked man dropped the syringe and ran toward the chaos. Elena looked at the man, who seemed different from the others, the possible ally. He rushed to her, cutting her ropes quickly. "Don't speak. Move." Elena hesitated. "Who are you?" He grabbed her hand. "I'm the one who doesn't want you dead." They ran through a side exit, gunfire echoing behind them. The wind outside was brutal, sand slashing across their faces. He pulled her behind a broken vehicle, bullets hitting metal inches above her head. Elena cried out, "Where are we going?" "We're getting you out of here." He yelled back, Why are you helping me?" He didn't answer immediately. Gunfire interrupted him. Then finally, "Because Rivers saved my life once, and now I'm returning the favor." Elena stared at him in disbelief. "You know him?" He nodded. "Better than you think." Episode 9. The escape bullets sliced through the night like burning arrows. Elena clung to the soldier's sleeve as they moved behind broken metal barriers, trying to stay low. The sandstorm made everything almost invisible, turning attackers into shadows. The man grabbed her shoulder. "Listen to me carefully. When I say run, you run, and don't look back." Elena's voice trembled. "Who's attacking them?" "Not us," he said. "Not our unit. Another faction. They wanted you alive. These new ones, they don't." Elena's breath stopped. "So they're trying to kill me." "Trying to kill everyone," he corrected. Gunfire intensified, closer, louder. A rocket exploded near the building they'd just escaped from, sending metal fragments into the air. He shouted, "Run." They sprinted through the storm, sand smashing against their faces like needles. Elena couldn't see anything, just vague shapes and shadows. Suddenly, a spotlight lit up from above, military helicopter lights cutting through the storm. A voice shouted through loudspeakers, "Hold your fire, hold your fire. Friendly pickup incoming." Elena glanced upward. U.S. Rescue. The soldier grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a set of rocks as the helicopter descended. Elena screamed, "Who sent the rescue team?" The man didn't answer, but his silence told her everything. Rivers, of course. The helicopter doors opened and soldiers jumped out, sweeping the area, firing into the darkness. One soldier grabbed Elena immediately, pulling her inside. "You're safe now," he shouted over the wind, but Elena wasn't listening. She looked back, searching for the man who helped her, but he wasn't running toward the chopper. He was running away. "Wait," Elena yelled, trying to move toward him. "He helped me. He saved me." Two soldiers held her back. "He's not coming with us." Elena watched the figure disappear into the storm. "He can't stay. He'll be killed." "No," the soldier said sternly. "He knows what he's doing." As the helicopter lifted off, Elena pressed her face against the window, trying to keep her eyes on the man. He turned once, just once, and lifted a hand briefly, like a silent goodbye. Elena whispered through shaky breath, "Thank you," then he vanished, swallowed by wind and sand. Inside the helicopter, medics checked her pulse, while others shouted coordinates into radios. Elena looked around desperately. "Where's Captain Rivers? Is he safe?" A soldier replied, "He's the one who sent us, but he didn't wait for extraction." "What do you mean?" The soldier looked away. He's still out there. Elena felt her heart sink. Rivers risked himself for her. But why? She barely knew him. She wasn't important, or was she? The helicopter pilot shouted, "We're going back to base. Prepare for landing." As they flew over the desert, Elena stared out into the darkness, feeling something she hadn't felt since she arrived in Iraq. Not fear, not pain, something worse, attachment. Because now she wasn't afraid of dying. She was afraid of losing someone she barely understood. Episode 10: The Return. The helicopter touched down on base soil just before dawn. Medical teams rushed forward, checking Elena's vitals, asking too many questions at once. She heard voices, but they sounded distant, muffled, like echoes through water. Pulse steady. She's dehydrated. Get her inside. Elena pushed their hands away weakly. I need Captain Rivers. Where is he? No one answered. Inside the medical tent, Sarah rushed to her, eyes wide with relief and shock. Elena, oh my God, what happened to you? Elena grabbed her uniform's sleeve. They took me. They wanted Rivers. Sarah froze. What? Why him? They think he has something, or knows something. I don't know. Sarah exchanged a terrified glance with another medic. Elena, they're saying there's been infiltration inside the base. No one knows who is loyal to who anymore. Elena shook her head, trying to make sense of it. There was someone with them, one of the soldiers, but he wasn't like them. He saved me. Who? I don't know his name, but he knew Rivers. Sarah's face went pale. Elena, whatever is happening here, it's bigger than us. Later, Elena sat alone on a medical cot, staring at her bruised wrists, listening to the distant sound of helicopters and gunfire. The tent felt colder than usual. Every shadow looked threatening. Every footstep made her flinch. Sarah whispered, "You're safe now." Elena shook her head slowly. No one here is safe. Hours later, the tent entrance opened. Captain Rivers walked in covered in dirt, blood on his arm, eyes darker than the night he stepped out into. Elena stood up. You knew. Rivers didn't answer. You knew something was coming, she repeated. He still said nothing. She stepped closer, voice trembling with anger and fear. You knew, and you didn't tell me. Finally, he spoke. I couldn't. Why? She demanded. Why me? Rivers looked at her for a long moment, then quietly. Because I didn't want you involved. Elena stared at him, stunned. Then, why did they take me? His jaw tightened. They wanted leverage. Over you, Elena whispered. Yes. Silence. Rivers looked away, like something inside him cracked. You should rest, he said softly. No, Elena said, stepping closer. Tell me the truth. Who are they? Rivers took a deep breath. People who used to be soldiers. People I used to know. They are not insurgents. They are something else entirely. Then who? She asked quietly. Rivers looked at her, and for the first time, his voice shook. They are ghosts from a mission that never officially happened. Elena felt the ground slip beneath her. Ghosts. Rivers nodded once. Elena, I need you to understand something. They didn't just take you to hurt me. They took you because they believe I will do anything to get you back. Why would you? Elena whispered. Rivers didn't blink. Because I owe you a life. Elena's voice cracked. I don't understand. You will, Rivers said, turning away. And when you do, he whispered, almost painfully, you might hate me. Episode 11. PTSD. Elena lay awake long after the base went quiet. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw shadows dragging her into darkness, heard whispered threats, felt ropes burning her wrists. Sleep wasn't rest, it was returning to the moment she was taken. She sat up suddenly, breathing fast. Cold sweat on her skin. She pressed a hand over her mouth, trying not to scream. Sarah woke up across the tent. Elena, are you okay? Elena shook her head, unable to speak. Sarah moved closer, voice calm. You're safe now. You're here. You're with us. Elena's voice trembled. Am I? Last night, everything felt real. It's trauma, Sarah whispered. It's normal. Elena didn't answer, because nothing felt normal. The next day, Elena tried to work in the medical tent, but every loud noise made her flinch. Every shadow made her heart jump. She dropped a scalpel when a truck backfired outside. Her hands shook uncontrollably. You need rest, Sarah insisted. I need distraction, Elena said. A young soldier with a shrapnel wound looked up at her, worry in his eyes. You okay, ma'am? Elena forced a smile. Of course. Another lie. But she was getting good at lying now. Later, she found Captain Rivers outside near the supply crates, staring at the desert like it was staring back. She approached slowly. I can't sleep. Rivers didn't look at her. That's normal. No, she whispered. It's not. Finally, he turned toward her, and she saw something she didn't expect: pain, regret, fear. You were never supposed to be taken, he said softly. That wasn't part of the equation. Equation, Elena repeated. Is that what I am to you, a variable? No, Rivers said. His voice dropped lower, more like collateral damage. Elena swallowed painfully. Collateral. Is that all I am? Rivers looked away. You don't understand the situation. Then help me understand, she shouted. Rivers stepped closer. Understanding will destroy you, Elena. She stared at him, hurt, angry, and terrified all at once. You should have warned me. I tried, he said quietly. No, she whispered, eyes watering. You used me. They took me because of you. Rivers closed his eyes briefly. If there was another way, then find it, she snapped. That night, Elena walked out alone behind the tents, staring at the endless desert. Sand danced like ghosts in the wind. She wrapped her arms around herself, shivering despite the heat. She whispered, "Why me? Why any of this?" Behind her, someone stepped closer, soft footsteps, careful. "Elena," Rivers said quietly. She turned, eyes red. "What do you want?" Rivers spoke slowly. "You deserve the truth, but I need something from you first." Elena frowned. "What?" Rivers looked into her eyes. "Don't leave the base. Not even for a moment. Not right now." "Why not?" she whispered. "Because they're not finished." Elena felt her blood turn cold. "You mean they're coming back?" Rivers didn't answer. He didn't have to. Episode 12, Forbidden Love Finale. The night air felt heavier than usual, as if the desert itself was holding its breath. Elena stood beside the medical tent, arms folded, staring into darkness that looked deeper than before. Every sound made her heart twitch. Every wind gust made her turn her head. She no longer trusted shadows. Rivers approached from behind, hands in pockets, silent as always. "Elena," he said quietly, "I need to know exactly what they asked you." "They asked about you," she answered. "Your transfer. Why you came early. Why you're here at all." Rivers stiffened. "And what did you tell them?" "Nothing," she said sharply. "Because I don't know anything." Rivers exhaled slowly. "Good. And you don't want to know." Elena stepped closer. "But I do." "No." Rivers' voice hardened. "You think you do. But truth is poison. Once you drink it, there's no return." Elena felt frustration stab at her chest. So all of this, getting kidnapped, nearly tortured, being hunted, is supposed to happen blindly, without answers. Rivers looked down, almost ashamed. "I didn't want you involved in any of this. And yet here I am," she snapped. Later that night, Elena sat alone near the edge of the base, knees pulled close, staring at the stars that looked too peaceful for such a violent world. She didn't hear Rivers walk up behind her until he sat down beside her quietly. "Elena," he whispered. She didn't answer. "For years," he continued, voice low, "I avoided attachment. It kills soldiers. It clouds decisions. But with you," Elena turned slowly toward him. "With me, what?" Rivers swallowed, forcing the words out. "You made me remember I'm human." Elena stared, stunned, heart racing. "Don't," she whispered. "Don't say things like that unless—" "Unless what?" he asked. She closed her eyes. "Unless you're willing to protect me the same way I would protect you." He leaned in slightly. "I already have." Elena felt her breath freeze. "Why?" she whispered. Rivers hesitated. "Because there are things you don't know about me. Things I've done. Missions that were erased, burned, forgotten even by the people who ordered them." Elena swallowed. "Who are you really, Rivers?" Rivers stood slowly. someone who should have died a long time ago. Elena rose to her feet, angry tears burning her eyes. I was a medic, not meant for secret wars, not meant to be dragged into someone else's ghosts. Rivers looked at her with a pain she couldn't read. You think this is about war? Elena, this is about you. Me, she whispered, confused, terrified. Rivers nodded slowly. They took you because someone told them you were important, more important than you think. Elena's heart stopped. That doesn't make sense. It will, he whispered. A loud alarm suddenly blasted through the base. Not incoming fire, not medical alert. Breach. Elena looked toward the watchtowers, searchlights sweeping the desert, officers rushing, soldiers shouting orders. Rivers pulled her behind him. Stay close. Gunfire erupted outside the perimeter. A massive explosion shook the ground beneath them. Elena shouted over the chaos. Is it them again? Rivers loaded his weapon. No. This time it's worse. What does that mean? He looked at her with a terrifying calm. It means they're done asking politely. The night sky lit up like a battlefield reborn, smoke, fire, screaming radios. Rivers grabbed Elena's hand tightly. Whatever happens next, don't let go. She squeezed his hand. I won't. Rivers whispered, I can't lose you again. Elena's eyes widened again. When have you ever? Before she could finish, a blast threw them both backward into darkness. Season 1 end to be continued.